Hello world, welcome Asset Management Visionaries Shaping Tomorrow. Stay tuned, we have a super guest, which you might already know who he is. Terrence O'Hanlon, stay tuned. Hello world, Asset Management Visionaries Shaping Tomorrow. Maura Abad here one more time reporting, and welcome Terrence O'Hanlon.
Thank you, Maura. It's really great to be a guest here. My second appearance.
Imagine, we did promise to the audience, we delivered. On behalf of the Association of Asset Management Professionals and Asset Management Visionaries, we are honored to have you because since last time we spoke, many new things have happened. And I know that we want to talk about them. First of all, let me just ask you, how are you doing? How is your life? Tell us a little bit what's happening in your personal life.
Personal life, well, I'm playing a lot of music, playing piano, playing guitar, walking the golden retriever, walking 100 miles a month, doing yoga every day, eating healthy and feeling good.
That's it, asset management. You are
asset management.
There you go. You know, walking the walk, I will say.
Hope it's not end of life asset management, but
No.
whole life asset management.
The whole life asset management. Tell us a little bit about the new work that has been released. There are many of them, so I'm gonna go straight to the point. Let's talk about the profound system of knowledge, because if we talk about that, I think after that the audience will understand what this is about and what is the call to action to them with this work?
Well, first off, I really have to acknowledge the teams both at the Association of Asset Management Professionals and at ReliabilityWeb.com. They've really stepped up and they're really maturing in running the business. So that's freeing me and my time up a little bit to spend some time doing more development work on the reliability side, and I couldn't be happier about that. So yes, we've released what we call the Uptime Elements Profound System of Knowledge. It's represented here on this pyramid, and I think those of you who follow Uptime Elements know that all my heroes, Buckminster Fuller and W. Edwards Deming and several others, are embedded. Their lessons that I've learned from them over the years are embedded in Uptime Elements. And W. Edward Deming in specific had a system that was called the a system of profound knowledge. So this is a nod of respect, hopefully. If he was here, I would hope he would view it as respect to how much his work has affected mine. And what it really is we already had the Uptime Elements reliability framework and asset management system, but now it's been enhanced. Some of you that follow us closely may know that we have a digitalization strategy framework and an IoT knowledge domain in the Uptime Elements. But in December at the International Maintenance Conference, we introduced the Uptime Elements management system, which is a compatible management system to the ISO high-level standards. So standards like ISO 9001, ISO 14001, and even ISO 55001. This you can use to manage your Uptime Elements deployment. We have over 6,000 implementations of the Uptime Elements, and it was, I don't want to say it was lacking a management system, but we had anticipated a wider adoption of ISO 55001. So when we had introduced the yellow asset management domain in 2016, we inferred a management system, but we didn't really specify it because we had anticipated that everybody in the space of asset-intensive industries would be adopting ISO 55000. That is not the case. In fact, the adoption is very low. There are very dedicated, enthusiastic, and passionate people that are rewriting that standard. They've just introduced a new version of it in 2024 that I believe are going to cause wider adoption. But when you compare it to something like ISO 9001 or 14001, there are probably less than 1,000 ISO 55000 implementations. There's over 1 million companies that are certified on ISO 9001. There's over 1 million companies that are certified in ISO 14001. So a lot of those companies use Uptime Elements. We wanted to give them a resource where they could manage it. We have companies that manage 150,000 commercial facilities, and they need something that they can scale with to manage Uptime Elements across their entire enterprise. So that's what the Uptime Elements management system is. Don't worry if all that was jibber jabber about the ISO 55000 and 9001 and 14001. If you don't use ISO high management standards, no problem. This management system is a simple, you could call it an asset management system for you. You don't have to be using ISO to do it. It's got 7 requirements that do align up with ISO requirements, but if you're not using ISO, these 7 requirements are basically common sense requirements to manage a system like Uptime Elements anyway. The one that very excited about the management system, unfortunately it's very geeky and boring, but still excites me, and I hope it excites you too. A new excitement is the Uptime Elements People and Culture at Work framework. We've been talking about culture for 20 years, 25 years. The slogan of Reliability Web is a culture of reliability. So we're just going into our 25th year. What we haven't really done is laid out a framework of what can you do about culture. And culture is not something you can kind of sort of force on people. Culture is something that people have to step into and walk into and want to be. And so this is an activation of things that maybe many of us already know something about, but we haven't really formalized. We haven't really standardized on an approach. And really, to be honest with you, it's less about culture and it's much more about people. So you might say people are the input and culture is the outcome. So we're really excited about it because it just creates better spaces for people to do their work in. I mean, you hired brilliant people, and then sometimes the system doesn't give them the opportunity to express that brilliance, to express their passion, to express their knowledge, to express their experience. In fact, many times it's suppressing them. Not intentionally, nobody's doing anything malicious, at least not for the most part. If you're working for a malicious company, I would suggest finding another job instantaneously, but I think that is the way small exception. Most of the time, it's just the system, the machine, the big machine that seems like it's impersonal and, just rolling forward. But, what we learned from Buckminster Fuller is that you can be a trim tab. You can unlock your people as trim tabs. And what trim tab is, rather than pushing on the front of a ship to turn it, drop back to the rudder. But even the rudder on a big, vast, giant ship is very difficult to turn manually. There's a small hinge device on the back of the rudder called a trim tab. And when you turn it, a low pressure flow is created. And that way it's easier to turn the rudder, easier to turn the ship. Buckminster Fuller used that naval metaphor to talk about what one person could do to change the destiny of mankind. Okay, big stuff. We're not really trying to go after the destiny of mankind, but we invite you to do so if that is in your future. But we're trying to change the destiny of the asset-intensive industries to create, our mission is to create safe, sustainable, and successful workplaces. Well, we're quite clear that does not happen unless you've got empowered, engaged people who feel safe, feel they have a voice in their own future, who feel they're heard at work, that they're valued at work. It doesn't mean that they're heard and valued and you have to do everything they say. It means you have to hear them. And it means you have to value what you're hearing from them, and then decide what to do from there. And it has to be safe at work. You have to realize everyone has a life. And we don't, for example, we don't use the term work-life balance because either work wins or life wins. We want to use work-life harmony. Sometimes life is going to be very dominant and sometimes work is going to be very dominant. How do you find a system that allows you to handle the upsurge in what work might ask of you or the upsurge of what life and family may ask of you? And so it's a holistic approach to people. And, I thought it was an area I was very good at. I thought it was an area I knew a lot about, but when I read about this from this workshop, from the work in the people and culture at work domain, I'm stunned at how powerful it is. It's simple, yet very powerful, and I invite everybody to learn more about it. And the four together form the Uptime Elements profound system of knowledge. So that was a long-winded answer to your question.
That's okay, because the idea is that we reinforce the message. Now, you are always talking about living in the inquiry, inviting the team to ask questions. I want to have a call to action here with the audience. What are some of the questions that companies should be asking regarding asset management?
Are we managing our assets so that the value from those assets are delivering our organizational objectives? Each organization has a unique context and unique objectives. So if the assets are producing a value that aren't that, you're sort of out of bounds. So how can we align the value from the assets so that we're optimizing the objectives that the company wants to perform? And that's a powerful question to ask. And if you can't validate that, you're probably not doing that. So that's one very important question.
How would you explain asset management to your neighbor?
I would say you usually have an idea. If you let's say you own a house or you own a car, you usually have an idea how you want to maximize the value of that. In fact, if you thought about the way that some of the assets are treated at work versus how you treat your assets at home, almost everybody manages their assets at home for value, for as much value as they possibly can generate. But somehow when you go to work, we lose that. And I think a lot of it is because we don't own those assets. That's our employer's assets, and we think they already know how to do that, or somebody must be aligning the asset value to the organization's objectives. It must be somebody's job here. And what you realize, it isn't anybody's job. So unless you have a formalized policy, unless you have a formalized strategy, unless you have a formalized plan, you are likely to be giving up an awful lot of value that those precious assets that the company invested its money in and invested its people in probably are not delivering exactly in alignment with what the organization's objectives can be. Now, the good news is it can be done, and it should be done. And it's a journey, just like reliability is, but it's well worth the journey.
And like you mentioned, is one step at a time.
The only way, I wish I could go to Singapore right now. Okay, beam me over to Singapore. Well, I can't. I have to step forward. I have to step to a car. I have to have the car step to the airport. I have to get to the airport. I have to go through security. I have to get on an airplane. I have to make the progress to Singapore, get off the plane. Everything is a journey, and it's a great metaphor for us to consider. So yeah, what kind of a journey could you do that isn't one foot in front of another?
Now, many of the colleagues that are watching us might be wondering, I am really interested to explore asset management. What will be kind of a knowledge roadmap that we can advise to them?
Well, of course, I live, eat, and breathe Uptime Elements, and one of the domains, the yellow domain, is asset management. It's quite simple. We're not prescriptive because we don't run pharmaceutical plants, we don't run power plants, we don't run shipping companies, we don't run ports. That's your expertise. But what we can do is give you a context to start thinking about how you're treating your assets and what you're asking of your assets and what your strategy is around your assets. And so I would suggest that book. I think ISO 55000 and ISO 55001 and ISO 55002, those are excellent standards to read. They're $100-some each, so maybe you might think that's expensive for a few pieces of paper. You might think it's not. But what you get when you buy an ISO standard is that 32 countries sent their best experts forward to collaborate on the things they could agree to, their consensus. So it's the top experts in the world that are reaching consensus on approaches to asset management. So we always have a lot of respect for the work of ISO, and we write all of our information in alignment with that, whether you're using ISO or not. And it doesn't, prohibit you from getting value from these ideas. You could get an ISO standard and say, we're going to comply 100% and we're going to be audited. Or you could say, we're going to comply 100%, we're not going to bother with the audit. Or you could say, wow, this is a good idea, I'm going to take this one. Ooh, I don't like this one. I don't like, oh, this is a good one. I'm going to take that one. Oop, I don't like this one. This is not for us, not for us. I'm going to take this one. So you can cherry pick and take the ideas that you want to take. So I would suggest buying those standards and reading them. They're a little oblique and hard to follow, but you'll get some ideas from them.
How can we make asset management simple?
Well, find ways to tell stories. I watched a keynote today about a visual vibration system, and you know what the end point was it's use the visuals to tell a story. I think you make asset management simple by telling stories around it. Show the big picture, not the little picture. Go up to the top of the mountain. Say it's about value. Now, value is not a simple, like reliability, value is not a simple conversation because it means different things to different people. But I would just find a way to tell the big picture story first. And then the second thing is find out why anybody should be interested and ask them. If we could find a way to get more value from the assets to achieve our goals, why would we do that? You know, what does that mean for you? And I would ask a lot of questions about it. I think asking questions is a powerful way to learn.
Would you recommend the audience to engage in different networkings, communities? What is the value that you have gotten of being part of a community?
Oh, wow. Well, first off, I was part of the ISO technical committee that drafted ISO 55000. Probably a quantum leap forward for me in terms of knowledge around asset management, because again, you're hobnobbing with the world's top asset management experts. You know, I went in thinking I knew a lot about asset management. In fact, thinking I knew everything about asset management. And what I found out is other people had much wider perspectives. Some people were property managers. Some people were around physical assets. Other people, big infrastructure. You know, is a bridge the same as a pharmaceutical plant? No, very different. So I found that the perspectives that were involved in the ISO group were terrific. So if you can get involved in whatever ISO group comes closest to what you're interested in, I think that's a great thing. There are associations, of course, the associations of asset management professionals is my personal favorite if I want to network with a group of people. But there's the Institute of Asset Management, and there's in Australia, there's the Asset Management Council. There's I don't know what it stands for. I apologize. I did at one time. IPWEA down in Australia and New Zealand. That is an awesome group for learning about asset management. They have the IMMI, I'm not even going to try, but it's a great manual about asset management. Trying to think of what books I might recommend. The 10 Rights of Asset Management, humbly written by me with Ramesh Gulati. And it's more asset life cycle management than asset management, but it's got asset management strung throughout the whole book.
If you had 3 wishes on asset management, what would that be?
Well, that it was, you know, I know like in the United States, we've just put a big amount, the government is spending a lot of money in infrastructure. You know, politicians like that because they're going to cut the ribbon on the bridge. They're going to cut the ribbon on the new facility. They're going to take the picture of the shovel digging into the dirt. I wish there was a law that said when you fund building new infrastructure, you will fund managing those assets for their entire asset life cycle. The problem is they funded the building of the asset, but that's not an asset life cycle. That's a part of an asset's life cycle. Then there's the after you built it part. And that's the part where the politicians go running for the hills because they want to spend money on other things, not maintaining the asset that they've just spent money on. So the asset degrades much faster than it should. Well, that's not the politician's asset. It's your asset. It's my asset. And we would like them taken care of, Mr. Politician, for the next 25 or 50 years. If that's the life that they're supposed to have, then we would like you to fund asset management for the next 25 and 50 years on those assets. It's not right to just build an asset, cut the ribbon, and then go running for the hills, and then underfund the requirements for managing that asset for value, for its intended value, its intended function, for its entire asset life cycle. I think, in a way, it's practically immoral.
If that's one wish, do you have any other 2, or will that cover it?
Well, I think if we did that, we would start to show up with social good. We could provide clean water for everybody. We could provide adequate transportation for everybody. We could provide clean water, clean air, and opportunities for everybody. It's a small investment compared to the investment that it costs to build and create the asset. And I'm flabbergasted that it isn't just something that happens automatically.
Would you say that what is missing to achieve asset management is education?
Awareness and education is probably a big part of it, but it's also appetite, it's will. Do you have the will? You know, some people move into their house and they improve their house over the time that they're in it. They do renovations, they keep it painted. Other people move into their house and they depreciate their house over time. You know, so you can have your choice. It is, you know, your asset, so you can choose whether you want to enhance it or whether you want to depreciate it. So I think a lot of it has to do with will.
Now, the pitch elevator. You get into the elevator. Inside the elevator is the CEO, the executive sponsor. What will be your case in less than a minute to sell asset management?
Would you like to throw away money or would you like to make money?
Simple as that.
Yes.
Any call to action to the audience to get more involved, that wish list, that awareness on start now or keep going?
Well, no matter what your role is, you know, you could be the plant lubricator and you can work with you can work in the context of asset management. So learn about it. You know, do learn about it. I think you're right. There's a lot of education to it, but you can, you know, read a few articles, read a few standards, and you're going to start to kind of move your thinking towards asset management thinking. Come to some of the conferences. We have 3 conferences that center on asset management, and there's a community of very passionate and dedicated and super smart people. There's solution providers, there's software, there's technology, there's robot dogs, there's everything. So there's no lack of resources, there's no lack of information. I was going to say go up and watch TikTok, but we just saw a presentation where they said probably not best to learn asset management from the University of TikTok.
Thank you very much, Terrence. On behalf of the Association of Asset Management Professionals, Asset Management Visionaries, and myself, I am so honored. Part of what I do is to connect with the best thought leaders in the world in asset management, and I'm really learning a lot. We hope that you capture, remember, one idea is all you need. If you took more, by all means, and sharing is caring. Remember that. Thank you one more time, Terrence. We'll see you fairly soon in another episode. Follow us and let's continue learning together.